Oh, hello. In today's video, we're going to discuss the Kill Team Imperial faction preview that went up on Warcom yesterday. I know I'm a preview behind, but Imperial factions are best factions, so let's get on with it. We're going to start by talking about the Death Corps. So, veteran guardsmen have been renamed to the Death Korps of Krieg. Not sure why they've done this. Maybe it's a hint at another guard team coming in the future. Maybe it's to tie in with the 40k release of Imperial Guard, which we know in 40k is going to be really heavily themed around the Death Corps. But yeah, they've renamed the team, but it's still very much the Vet Guard team that we know. The Sergeant has been renamed the Watchmaster. You'll see that in the Combeads equipment rules above. So we're going to look at the Guardsman orders. So, Guardsman orders, Strategic Gambit and Support. So remember, Strategic Gambit is anything that happens in that when you would play a strategic ploy type phase. And Support is a new keyword that just means anything that somebody does that's a buff to somebody else that has a range. Everything that's support, remember, you can buff the range by 3 inches if you have one of those radio pieces of equipment that you can buy with your equipment points. Remember that from the leak video the other day. So, a friendly Death Corps Watchmaster, which is going to be your leader, operative can issue a Guardsman order. Whenever it does, select one Guardsman order for all friendly Death Corps operatives within 6 to receive. So it's a bubble of everybody within 6, which you can buff to 9 with a radio. I'm guessing the Vet Guard are really going to love that radio equipment just for the massively increased bubble that they're going to get on their team-wide ability. Right. Whenever a friendly operative receives a Guardsman order, apply its rules until the end of the turning point. Operatives can't benefit from more than one Guardsman order at once. They only benefit from the most recent order they received during the turning point. So previously, there was a way you could benefit from 2 orders via a tactical ploy. Now it explicitly calls out that you can only benefit from 1. So they only show us one of the orders in the menu of orders. Okay, so this order is Take Aim. Ranged weapons operatives that receive this order, excluding mortar barrage and remote detonator, have the balanced weapon rule. So, Take Aim existed in the previous edition of the rules. It's slightly changed. It now gives... Why is my painting light on? Honestly. It now gives balance, so professional, reroll 1 dice, where previously it allowed you to reroll all the results of 1. Since Vet Guard are typically rolling 4 dice, hitting on 4s, this probably is going to work out to be a buff. I've not totally sat down and worked out the maths, but it seems to me that rolling 4 dice and getting to re-roll one of the dice that has rolled a 1, 2, or a 3 is probably better than rolling 4 dice and getting to re-roll any 1s that you happen to have rolled. But of course there will be situations where you wish you had one and not the other. We get to see one piece of equipment. These are the Combeads. Now, these are quite interesting. So, first of all, massive that we're getting equipment, right? Because remember, I had a slightly doomery prediction that maybe they were going to not give equipment to the pre-existing teams to make them feel in some way lesser than the new teams, to try and get you to buy one of these new teams. But I am now fully confident that it looks from everything we see here that the previous existing teams have the same full treatment and workup as the 2 new teams. So we're getting equipment for them, and they've got Combeads here. So whenever a friendly Watchmaster or Confidant operative issues a Guardsman order, you can use this rule. If you do, instead of each friendly Death Corps operative within 6 receiving the order, you can select one friendly operative anywhere to receive... I injected the anywhere, but effectively it means anywhere to receive the order. So, this doesn't seem very good to me. I'd rather have that bubble of 6, and if I'm going to buy a piece of equipment to improve my orders, maybe I'm going to buy that radio from the generic equipment list to increase my bubble to 9. That seems like the better shout than getting the Combeads, which is the same cost, right? 1 equipment pick out of our 4 equipment picks, so that's just me. And then we also see a strategic ploy, Siege Warfare. So this is a brand new strategic ploy, which... gives you Saturate, which remember is the new name for no cover, just on all your ranged weapons for your whole team for a command point. That seems pretty good. It does make you wonder what ploy, if they're getting an entirely new ploy, which of their ploys from the old team they've lost. But this all seems pretty cool and interesting. And then we're going to have a look at a Death Corps data card. So Mortar Barrage here, quite a few changes actually. So the Mortar Barrage ranged attack itself loses an attack dice, so it used to be 5, now it's down to 4, but it gains 2 points of crit, so it's quite powerful there. 2 points of crit? Do I mean 1 point of crit? It must be 1 point of crit. Surely it was 3-4 before. Was it 3-3 before? I've closed the other thing. But yeah, I've written 2 points of crit, so 2 points of crit. It loses Unwieldy and Barrage. So Barrage was barely on anything. It was like you can't gain cover from stuff that's above you or something. Barrage was a weird rule that almost never came up. Unwieldy used to mean that you had to pay your second action point to use this weapon. So effectively firing with your mortar was 2 AP. Now it's not. It's now 1 AP. So that's really good, taken in with the fact that the spot action now also costs 1 AP. So now your spotter on conceal can be calling in a off-table mortar barrage and using the spot action every activation, which is a massive buff for the Death Corps spotter, because previously you'd keep him hidden, you'd use him for the spot, and you'd almost never use that mortar barrage. At least this was my experience. The spot action essentially does the same thing, but it's worded much more elegantly. And it also removes obscuring, which it didn't necessarily do before, so that's pretty cool. This used to be worded really clunkily, where it was like, if you're in cover, but not... So, if you're on a conceal, you're now on an engage, unless you're behind heavy, which in effect meant that people that were on conceal behind light terrain could be targeted. It just talked about the order being treated as an engage. This is a far more elegant way of doing it, where they're just giving it, it has seek light, so it ignores light cover for the purposes of the intervening. If light cover can no longer intervene, therefore you, if you're on conceal behind light cover, it's as if the light cover wasn't there for the purposes of shooting you. You still get the cover save, right, but you can be shot. So it seems to do basically the same thing, but they've massively cleaned up the wording, which is really, really nice, and it's a really powerful thing in this edition that they've really cleaned up that wording and made the game more accessible. But like I said, spot's gone down to 1 AP, so I think all in all this is a pretty significant buff. To the spotter anyway, which is cool. He was always one of the more powerful, interesting pieces on the Vet Guard team, and now he can call down his mortar and do his support action every single activation, which is awesome. On to the Kasrkin. So Kasrkin seems to have been really changed. It feels like from reading the article that elite points as a mechanic is gone, because they talk about everybody having one special team-wide rule, and then in one of the cases they say, oh yeah, the Arbites, they have 3, and then this. But Kasrkin, there's no mention of elite points. Instead they have strategic skillet arms, which is it's similar to Guardsman orders, I guess, in that you're choosing one thing from a menu, but you don't need to care about a bubble or radio beads or whatever. You just go, we're doing this, and then you will have it. So we're given one example. Light 'em up. Whenever a friendly Kasrkin operative is shooting a ready enemy operative, its ranged weapons has severe. So reminder again, severe is where you can promote a normal to a critical every single time that you shoot, which is really good. But we don't know what else is going to be on this skillet arms menu, but it seems to replace elite points, which, until we see the whole thing, I can't really tell you whether that's a buff or a nerf, but what it is going to do is massively speed up playing with Kasrkin, because the elite points thing was a clunky mechanic in that you had to interrupt the flow of the game at a point where normally it's not interrupted. You had to sort of roll the dice, and then you'd stare at them for a while and decide what you were going to do with your elite points. So this is just quite good, because it will speed things up, and it may provide comparable, depending on what's available, it may provide a comparable boost. I feel like it's likely that 1 or 2 of these things are going to be the ones that are always used, and others won't be as good. Apparently there are going to be 4 of them. but we don't know what the other 3 are. We also see an evolution of the foregrip equipment. So, same name as equipment they had before, but previously the foregrip was like so you don't minus the one from your BS when you're overwatching. This is totally different because, of course, minusing from your BS when overwatching isn't a thing anymore. Whenever a friendly Kasrkin operative is shooting an operative within 3 with ranged weapons on its data card that aren't pistols, it gains accurate 1. Remember, accurate 1 is that you're able to retain an automatic hit without rolling it. Remember, the weird thing with accurate was they said it could stack up to 2 times. We learned this in the core rules link, right? So if you're on a vantage point, somehow shooting down at someone within 3 of you with a foregrip, you can actually get accurate 2. So you can retain 2 dice without rolling them, which is pretty cool. But it doesn't stack 3 times. So if you're on that second story vantage point on a stronghold, shooting down, you don't gain accurate 3. That's not how it works. It would cap out at accurate 2. We also see a strategic ploy, engage from cover, which is a rename and reworked version of Safeguard. So Safeguard used to be pretty useless. Whenever an operative is shooting a Kasrkin operative that's in cover, it used to be you can re-roll results of 1. Now it's you can re-roll any of your one of your defense dice, so any one of your defense dice, which is a bit better. Will you still use it? Depends on all sorts of things, like what the other strat ploys are like. It was one that you basically ignored previously with Kasrkin in favour of a lot of their other shenanigans with your points. But it is there, and it has been slightly buffed. And then we're going to have a look at the Kasrkin Trooper. So the big thing is he's hitting on 3s with his lasgun. So previously, the thing was that they were BS4, but they had the elite points, and BS4 plus elite points, people were like, oh, that's better than AP3, so they're better shots. And it was this whole thing in the community, because you had the people who think the Kasrkin are the coolest, and you got the people who think the Scions are the coolest, and they're like, having a big kind of weird lore-based argument over which kind of bog standard, like human, but with the most elite training possible, and that it's possible to just give an unaugmented human, like which one is going to be better. Guys, it's the Battle Sisters. But now everybody has the same hit stat of 3+, so that's been smoothed over. I guess the community should be happy with that. What's more interesting, like the 3-up's really important, really meaningful, not necessarily on this guy with the lasgun, but if we assume that carries over to the gunners, right? But what makes this really cool is this guy can seemingly throw a smoke grenade every single turn, or a stun grenade every single turn, or a stun grenade, then a smoke grenade, then a stun grenade. Like, you can throw one of either a smoke or a stun grenade every single turn. This says it's performing these actions using this rule doesn't count towards their action limits if you also select those grenades from equipment. So you don't have to have picked you don't have to have picked utility grenades as one of your equipments. This is just extra on top. So if you picked utility grenades, then you have 2 smoke/stun grenades in addition to whatever your trooper is putting out every turn. There's even an argument, like in the Kasrkin team, if they haven't changed how it's put together, right now, for the current edition of Kill Team, you're forced to take 1 trooper. Actually, I don't know if you would, because all the other specialists in Kasrkin are really cool, but you might find you want to take that second trooper just so that you can have one. It's one friendly trooper, but you could have one that was throwing the stun grenade every turning point and one that was throwing a smoke grenade each turning point, I guess. Like, that might be in a couple of very limited scenarios something that you wanted to do. He has lost the elite trooper rule, which was that when he was shooting, he counted as him having one free elite point. I think elite points are gone, and I think that rule being gone is just another piece of evidence towards elite points being gone. Okay? Let's move on. We're going to move on now to the Exaction Squad, otherwise known as the Adeptus Arbites. Let's not get into that again. So they're called out in the text as having 3 faction rules: Repress, which is shown, and also it says, quote, operatives may single out enemies for punishment and even fire into the thick of combat with no penalty. So I'm going to assume that this thing of firing into the thick of combat with no penalty is some version of ruthless efficiency, which they currently enjoy. No idea what the singling out enemies for punishment is going to be. But as far as repress, the repress rule, well, I'll read it. Some weapons in this team's rules have the repress weapon rule. Repress. Whenever this operative is using this weapon, each of your blocks can be allocated to block 2 unresolved successes instead of 1, and if this operative is retaliating, you resolve the first attack dice, e.g. the defender instead of the attacker. So this is a combination of the repress and the shield rules that already existed on the Shockmaul and Shield armed operatives. It's just been tidied up and moved to being a faction rule, so those weapons can just have the word repress next to them. So far, doesn't seem like as many substantive changes for the Exaction Squad. We see a rework of the strobing phospher-lumen. It has been nerfed in 2 ways. So the strobing phospher-lumen, everyone used to love it, take loads of them. It does now only... It used to prevent all rerolls. It now only prevents your enemy of rerolling results of 1. It used to have quite a big radius. Now they have to be within 2 inches. So within 2 inches prevents them from rerolling 1s, which is fine. But it is team-wide, right? So, it makes me worried for my Night Lords, because my Night Lords used to take 3 flayed skin, which was turn off rerolls. Turn off rerolls within 2, but it was all rerolls, not rerolls of 1. I can see this happening to Night Lords as well, getting that trade-off where, well, now everybody gets it. Right, but it's only rerolls of 1 rather than all rerolls, which is kind of sad. It's going to be less effective. It's going to really shut the enemy's team down less, but it is what it is. If it had been all... I fully support changing it to 2 inches, but if it had been all rerolls on all the team, especially a team as numerous as Exaction Squad, probably would have been... really too powerful. But now I think, is it going to be as good as taking like 2 crack grenades or ladders, or like, I think they're in this really difficult design space with the equipment is the one thing they have to rework in all of these teams now, and they're trying to rework it into things that can all be team wide, and I think sometimes they're going to come out and be like, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe people are staring at this going, Phil, you're insane. Strobing phospher-lumens are amazing. I want to take them every single game. They're so much better than a grenade, but I'm not sure I see it, but then, as I always say, not actually very good at kill team, just quite good at presenting information, if I'm good at anything at all, okay? Long Arm of the Emperor's Law, annoyingly, the same name as a pre-existing tactical op, but it does something completely different. So let's read that now. Use this in the firefight deploy. The friendly Exaction Squad operative is performing a shoot action. You select a weapon with the range X special rule, excluding frag or crack grenades. Until the end of the action, you add 3 to X. That's pretty cool. You've got your shotguns with their short-range profiles that you can buff to avoid having to use the long-range profile. I guess that's cool. Doesn't seem that meaningful, but we'll wait to see until we see the rest of the things that you can spend your CP on. Let's look at an Exaction Squad operative. So they've shown us the Castigator, which is the fellow in the gimp mask with the handcuffs, which is like amazing. Like, this is my BDSM policeman. Why, yes, I am playing Warhammer 40,000. So he's had some changes. The Maul has gained a point of damage. It used to be 4-4, now it's 5-5. Endangered Focus has been reworded, and there is a material change. It used to include your save, so people couldn't modify your save. But now it excludes the save, so his save can still be modified by anything in the game that happens to modify saves. What I really like, and I think hopefully tells us something amazing about the rest of the game, is Zealous Dedication. So Zealous Dedication, for those of you that played, this is terminology now that dates back to 7th edition 40k, but it used to be what's known as a feel no pain type save, right? Which is basically when you've taken a wound, you roll a dice per wound that you've taken, and on whatever it is, 5 up, 6 up, 4 up, whatever it happens to be, you don't take that wound, and it would go after and on top of armor saves and those kinds of things. And the problem in Kill Team with these feel no pain type save is generally in Kill Team you can play the entire game. And we don't know if this is necessarily true now. It probably is. You can play the entire game with 6 dice. right? And then you suddenly come to somebody with a feel no pain type save where you'd have to roll 1 dice for every incoming damage, and you'll both, both, I hope there's 1 or 2 people watching it, you'll all know sometimes you can inflict more than 6 damage in one shot, right? So you're playing against Death Guard, was the classic one in the compendium, because they all had it, but it did crop up on individual operatives in other bespoken teams, and you'd have to suddenly start rolling these 40k, like handfuls, these buckets of dice on all these feel no pain type saves. So I'm glad that's gone. Like, yes, it probably is a nerf, but just in terms of making the game feel better and be better, I'm really glad it's gone. So Zealous Dedication now, whenever an attack deals damage of 3 or more, you roll a d6, on a 5 up you get a subtract 1. So a little bit of a nerf, but a massive quality of life upgrade in terms of you're no longer having to roll these buckets of dice. Castigator's arrest used to be really, really complicated and quite good in that when you were arrested you could only pass, right? Now it's just, if I'm in control, if I'm within an inch of you and your friends aren't there, you can't fall back. It's just not an option, which is much, much simpler, but also like pretty good and less fiddly on a guy who's quite good in combat. Just he can tie people up, you can't fall back from him. Like, that's pretty cool, and I can see how it's useful. So maybe it's lost a bit of flavour, but I think it's really good. I think it's good changes. Navy Breachers now. On to Navy Breachers. So Breach and Clear seems to me to be exactly the same, but again, just with this lovely clean... Like, the big thing to take away from this, one of the big things, is how well they've cleared up the language, and where they have made rules changes, a lot of them, not all of them, are with a real eye to making the game play smoother. Even if they affect balance, they make the gameplay smoother. It looks like Void Armor might be gone from the current edition, because again, they do say Breach and Clear is their only special rule. Now we see a new tactical ploy called Deckhand. I'll read Deckhand. Deckhand. Use this firefight ploy during a friendly Imperial Navy Breacher operative's activation. If it has an APL stat of 1 or 2, that operative can perform a free operate hatch action during its activation, can do so during the charge or fall back action. You cannot use this ploy if the access point has been welded shut, see hatch cutter, unless it's a friendly hatch cutter that's activated. First of all, I don't know what I think about this, because it leans into, like, this does nothing in the new Killzone Voltus, and it does nothing on Beta Decima. But in roughly a third of games, if you're playing on Into the Dark, and Into the Dark is like really, really popular in some gaming groups, this is really quite powerful. There are teams that would kill for the ability to charge, like, if you're just using this to burn a CP to open a door as an extra APL, like, that's fine. Trade a CP for an APL. Most people would take that. But honestly, the secret sauce here is using this to charge through a hatch. Like, my Axe Jack is using this to, like, just mallet through a closed door, straight into somebody's grill, straight into their face with his fire axe. Because that's the biggest thing on Into the Dark that you have to, like, learn and get your head around, is you cannot charge through a closed hatch. You can move through a closed hatch with 2 APL, but you cannot spend, an APL to charge through a closed hatch. So that's what makes that powerful, right? Don't think of it just in terms of getting a free opening of a hatch, although that might still be something that you wanted to do now and again. Combat Stim is a rework of Stims, which Stims used to be +1 wound, and a lot of people play this team and they just go, oh, we're all Stims. Yeah. Combat Stims instead allows you to ignore injured, which I think is powerful. And that's one, definitely just, you want to look at the balance of the equipment and where you're taking your 4 points. But that seems to me to be good equipment. One equipment point of your 4, just to be like, yeah, none of us can ever be injured. That seems pretty cool to me. A Navy Breacher data card. So let's see. There's not that many changes. Shield Bash has gained a point of crit. Used to be 1-1, now it's 1-2. And Breach Wall, has been massively simplified. It used to be quite complicated, okay? Now it's massively, massively simplified. I think there's a material change in there somewhere to do with the part about you can't use it if more friendly operatives are touching this operative. But largely what they've done is tidy up and clean up the writing. Like, I've never played Navy. It was one of those teams I almost played. And I might get back to them at some point. But so I'm not a massive expert on them, but trying to read the breach wall rules for the current edition, like this new edition, it's just so much cleaner and so much better. And I think it largely does the same stuff, right? Onto the novitiates. So faith points. Faith points are generated totally differently. Let's read the faith point bit. Acts of faith. In the ready step of each strategy phase, you gain a number of faith points equal to half the number of friendly novitiate operatives. It's most likely going to remain a 10-man team, so it's going to likely be 5 at the start of the game. Half the number of friendly novitiate operatives that haven't been incapacitated, rounding up. Whenever a friendly novitiate operative is shooting, fighting, or retaliating, which is defending in a fight action, or an operative is shooting it, in the roll attack dice or roll defense dice step, if it's being shot, you get to spend your faith points to do 1 act of faith. You can't use more than 1 act of faith per sequence, and the costs and effects are as follows. So, we're shown intervention. You can retain a fail as a normal instead of discarding it. So previously this was split into guiding light, which was this for shooting, and divine shield, which was this for defense rolls. So it's into one. These both used to cost 2 faith points. It's possible that intervention costs 2 faith points. It could cost 1 faith point. We haven't actually got a cost column, and it does say the costs are as follows, but that's just interesting. We've also been given a piece of equipment in the form of the Auto Chastiser. So the Auto Chastiser now works totally differently. This used to be a thing where you could reroll 1s for free, but if you rerolled a 1 into a 1, you took additional mortal wounds. Now it's a device for hurting yourself for more faith points, which is a bit interesting. Once per turning point, when a friendly novitiate operative is shooting, fighting, or retaliating, in the roll attack dice step, you can inflict 1 to 3 damage on that friendly operative, but not enough to incapacitate it. If you do, you can use 1 act of faith for free during the sequence with a faith points cost no more of the damage inflicted from this rule, which tells me that some of the acts of faith, when they publish the full list, they're going to have costs of 1, 2, or 3, right? We've also got a brand new strat ploy in Ardent Vengeance, which is whenever a friendly novitiate operative is shooting against, fighting against, or retaliating against an expended, that means an enemy operative that's already gone, the operative's weapon has punishing. So punishing enables you to promote a fail to a normal if you roll a crit. Seems a bit like, does it have to have that extra clause in there about it needing to be an expended enemy operative? Seems like a hard one to predict in the strategic ploys phase that you're going to use for sure that turn, but obviously we're going to wait and see what the rest of the ploys actually are. A novitiate data card, we get Blessed Cup Lady, otherwise known as the Pronatus, but Cup Lady to her friends and her enemies. First thing to note about the Pronatus is the auto pistol has range 8. That's 2 more than 6. Honestly, I think we're playing this game with a tape measure, guys. It's one of those things where, like, the Eldar stuff's gone up on Warcom today, and I'm going to make a video about the Eldar stuff, but the Eldar have all got movement 7. So, you've got a 6-inch move tool, and then you've got your movement widget with its 3, its 2, and its 1. And the game's like 7s, 8s. Like, you're going to want a tape measure. I think just have to accept that and move on. I don't like it, but accept it. Divine Acquisition has been reworked, so once per turning point, when this operative performs a mission action that requires it to control an objective or mission marker, you gain a number of acts of faith, points, equal to its turning point number. So Divine Acquisition is kind of what she always did. She was always your stand at the back generating faith points person. You need to have a mission action to perform. Now, you can do a mission action for free, so this is fine. If you've got something like loot, brilliant. You can hang her at the back of the field. You can loot for free. You can do Divine Acquisition for free. And you're actually going to struggle, I think, to spend your action points. You know. But if you have on these maps now, you're not always going to have an objective in your home area. I think very rarely, if I remember rightly. And not all the objectives have mission actions on them. And some of them will have mission actions that you do once and then it stays under your control. So you're going to have to, I think, be using her AP for moving and dashing a lot more. I think it's going to be a lot less of a thing of just putting it in a little bunker and raising a cup every turn to generate points. Because of that, they've made those things free, right? So you can just move, dash, or move, shoot. You know, if you get shot with your auto pistol, but largely just moving around, dashing around, raising the cup in different places, right? And it's worth saying as well, you get the faith equal to the turning point number. You used to just get 3 every turn, so this time you get 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, which is, you know, a slight nerf probably, but we don't know what the costs are going to be on the different faith points, different acts of faith as well. And then we've got the Inquisitorial Agents. So the Inquisitorial Agents, the team rule for the Inquisition seems to have been reworded, but it is largely unchanged. It is nice to see that Sisters of Silence and the Tempestus Scions are going to be continue to be supported as units for this list. Obviously, wait for their data cards with interest. They also still have absolute authority, which everybody will be fantastically thrilled to learn, seems to me to be unchanged. The servo skull is also unchanged, except it does seem to be the case that... Very sorry, I was seized by the desire to sneeze. It does seem to be the case that it's one of these pieces of equipment where you buy it once, and then, you can only use it once per turning point, but different people can use it once per turning point, anyone on the team. Previously, you'd have to buy it and give it to a particular person and say, this person is going to get my free mission actions or my 1 AP less mission actions, right? We get a data card. As far as I can see, there are no changes to the Hex Assist. He's just clearer, so that's great. Yeah, great. No complaints. So, yes. Ignore those slides. Final thoughts. They've shown a large willingness to change the established teams. All the teams, apart from the Inquisition at the end, all the teams there had, I felt, quite substantive changes, right? The Kasrkin most of all, but not only the Kasrkin, right? I'm not sure how I feel about iconic abilities like elite points disappearing. It feels like all the changes done to the teams at this point have been done with a view to making the game clearer, faster, and feel nicer to play. I don't think they've necessarily been done with 2 eyes on balance. Obviously, the game has been playtested and has been balanced, but I think their main objective hasn't been, let's take this opportunity to do like a turbo balanced data slate and change some things that need changing for balance purposes. I think their opportunity really here that they've seized is to do a root and branch rework of words on a page and change things like Feel No Pain and maybe arguably like Elite Points, where there's a lot of work involved in getting to the result. To talk about the channel for a minute, I don't have so much work I need to do. There is an Eldar version of this video that needs to be made. That's going to be out tomorrow. They're going to do the Xenos teams. On Thursday, they're going to do the Chaos teams. On Friday, they're going to do the Space Marine teams. So tomorrow, I'm going to do my hobby stream, right? So there'll be no video tomorrow. Thursday, I'll probably cover the Chaos. Friday, I'll probably cover the Space Marines. Saturday, I'll probably go back and cover the Eldar. And then on Sunday, I'll cover the Xenos. I think is how I'm going to do it. Now, speaking of Sunday, that's also when we expect at 6 PM to get the preview telling us that it's going to go on pre-order the following Saturday. That's just, it might not be the case, but that's just what this feels like. So in that case, Sunday's video is going to be talking about exactly what products. For example, we've seen that they're going to give us a rebox of Beta Decima, a rebox of Into the Dark, the Terrain. So Sunday's video might actually be based on products. That then pushes, what did I say I was going to do? The Xenos, one of the Xenos videos to Monday. And then I still want to do, there's more content I could do with the leaks. I could discuss the ops. I could discuss the rules for the 2 other teams that we've seen in full, right? I need to review the Turning Point Tactics tournament. It was amazing. I know there's a lot of people specifically waiting on my review for that. I want to have a ramble about maps and whether having set map packs is actually good or bad and the pros and cons. Like, there's so much kill team content that I want to do, and that's to say nothing of all the other things that are percolating in my brain about Star Wars, Shatterpoint, or 3D printing or other things. So it's going to be a really, really busy time on the channel. But the thing is, YouTube actively punishes you for putting out more than one video a day, and as I'm now back at work full time, like, I can't get videos out in the middle of the day. Right, I'm very jealous of people who have more flexible schedules, and are able to get that video out as soon as it lands on Wacom. What I like to think of myself, and maybe this is flattery, I'm going to go off on a slight tangent. Right, the video is basically done. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing, especially if you've learned something. Join in for the hobby stream tomorrow, and I want to say a big thank you to all my members, the people that support the channel financially. Thank you so much. It's massively appreciated. And if you're interested in membership, there is a join button somewhere below. Also, you can join the Discord, join in with the conversations, talk about whatever you want, right? You're free to discuss anything you want in the Discord. You don't have to be a paid member to join the Discord. There is a separate little room for paid members, but 99% of the Discord is free. Now, all that said, the little side ramble I wanted to have is I like to think of me as being slow news. Like, I'm a big believer in, I subscribe still to a current affairs magazine in the UK called Private Eye. Private Eye comes out every 2 weeks, and it comments on, it's also got satire and stuff, but it comments on the news and things that have happened over the course of the last 2 weeks. And it's a great antidote to the very instant nature of information at the moment. And I like to think that by coming out in the evening with a PowerPoint deck, with a bit more sort of explanation to it, maybe I offer something more unique and a bit different, and with a unique place compared to those other people who are able to get the content out so fast. And they're very talented at being able to just read the Wacom article and add a lot of nuance and information on the hoof, whereas I have to kind of slow it down a bit and go through it. So hopefully people find this useful. Do let me know in the comments any thoughts and feedback. I had one person ask me after my last video, can I change my font? Now, I really like this font. It's one of my favourite things that I think is iconic about the channel. But if you want me to change if it's a genuine accessibility thing and people are like, no, please use a simpler font, please let me know in the comments. And if there's enough people that don't like the font, I will change the font, even though I really like this font. Thank you. And to all those people that stay with us a little bit, hurrah. Have a hurrah from me. Have 3 hurrahs. Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. 3 cheers for you for staying till the end. Right. Bye-bye. Have a good one. And I'll see you for the hobby stream on Wednesday. Cheerio.